Welcome to Hook Connections. Sorry we haven't been here in a while. We've been dealing with a lot of different things, and we're going to focus mostly our future shows on just doing those that really have some great information to bring to you. So today we have Cindy Oetjen she's a prosecuting attorney from the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. I reached out to them and asked about them coming in to talk about all of the homeowner scams that occur, because there are so many people that are abused and that are taken advantage of because of homeowner scams. And you know, we were just talking about it before it started, and it's frightening. You know, welcome, Cindy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Give me, just to start off with, what is one of the first steps that a homeowner should do if they are like taking quotes for a remodeling project or getting a project done?
So I think one of the most important things is talk to your friends and get recommendations. If you know someone that you has had work done, to talk to them and find out who they have work done with. You want to make sure that you research companies. You know, a quick Google search of a company can just give you a lot of information. If you write their name in and ask if anyone else has been scammed by them, you can get a lot of information. You don't have to use the big companies like Angie's List or those things to find out the information. You can find out a lot on your own.
Right. So let's start with, I know a lot of people get their roofs replaced, get their windows replaced from someone that knocked on their door.
Right. We recommend that it's not a good idea. As you just said earlier, when people are getting quotes, one of the things that is suggested, and I know I'm not the only one that suggests this, and I know it's time consuming, but getting 3 quotes so that you know what each company is willing to do for you for what price. And you never want to give your money to them up front. You always want to make sure that you're saving some of the money that you give to them when they finish the work, so you know that the work is done properly.
So if you have a $10,000 contract, what amount is feasible for a homeowner to pay down with before the work starts?
Well, we would like to think around a third. Of course, it would depend on what kind of work it is being done, right? So if you're doing a roofing contract, roofers don't necessarily keep shingles sitting around, so they need enough money to go buy the shingles. So you'd need to work that out, probably depending on the type of contracting that you're doing and what items they need to purchase to put in to do the work.
And I know a lot of people have gotten scammed because they didn't read the contract.
Right.
Or there was changes made to the contract, but there wasn't an addendum in the contract indicating those changes, so it's like they never existed at all.
Right. It's very important to make sure that you read the contract thoroughly. That's why we say get 3 estimates and check those to see who's willing to do what for the amount of money and see what it is that you're getting for the money. And if there are changes that are to be made, you need to make sure that those are in writing as well, because if they're not in writing, then they're not necessarily what we call the 4 corners of the contract. And if it's not in there, then it doesn't exist.
Absolutely. Well, and I was just discussing with her earlier how Hook Connect operates is that we go and we investigate these contractors for people free of charge for the consumer. If they get 3 estimates on getting a roof or a house remodeled or getting a room addition put on, we will go do our quick research to make sure that they're registered to do business in the state, because that's a huge thing.
Correct.
And if they're not registered, you struggle to get anything taken care of and have the state represent you, you know.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be difficult. So that's just something extra that the average consumer doesn't take the time to see if a business is registered with the Secretary of State, nor do they know how. You know.
Right, and it really is easy, and I will confess that I don't often do it either, but you know, it really is not a hard thing to do. You just go on the Attorney General's website or Secretary of State's website and check to make sure they're listed as a company.
So what do you recommend for when someone does knock on your door? What are your recommendations as far as how do you deal with that?
Well, a couple things. Now we say we don't even answer the door. So, and I say don't answer the door and tell them you're not interested. If they insist that they want to sell you something, or they're trying to get you to, you know, like say they drive up and they see that you have a messed up tree or a messed up driveway, say thank you, leave your business card, and I'll contact you when I want to have an estimate. Because a lot of times what they're going to tell you is, I just did your friend's house down the road. Well, what was that address? Ask them a couple of questions through the door. Don't answer it, and then just say, I'm not interested or whatever, and have them leave.
Well, yeah, and I just saw something recently, and I think it was in social media. One of the news channels posted it. I don't know which media station it was, but there were 3 people going around knocking on doors with rakes and shovels and offering to do raking. And then what they did was they came back when no one answered the door and tried to break in.
Right. And that's one reason why we say acknowledge the fact that someone has knocked at your door. Because if you are home, a lot of burglaries take place during the day. So we want to make sure we acknowledge that we're home. That way they will not come around to the back of the house. So it's important to make sure that you're acknowledging
Absolutely.
someone when you're answering.
And probably the biggest age group that falls for some of these home improvement scams are the boomers, because we were brought up in an era to trust everybody.
That's right. We were brought up in an era to trust everybody, and when someone knocked on the door, they had a legitimate reason for knocking on your door. And secondarily, now that you boomers are starting to retire, you are now more accessible because you are home during the day. Thus, when they come and knock on the door, you're there to answer it. Whereas when you were working, they might have knocked on your door several times, but you didn't know it because you weren't home.
Yeah. And another way that you need to protect yourself, for instance, I was just telling her before the show that the Sue Weaver cause was set up because a woman had some work done on her house, and the 2 contractors that were in her house, one of them came back, 3 to 6 months later, raped her, killed her, and set the house on fire when she was at home. So this foundation was set up for companies to get qualified and certified that they do background checks and they do the proper research on all the employees, and that's very important. Because you don't want a child molester in your house when you have young children there. You don't want any kind of a criminal in your house working in your house. I mean, you don't know what they might have, what kind of narcotics they may have used before they, came to your house or anything else. So,
right. I don't think there are any rules that. Company would say we do background checks. That would be one thing to know about a company before you bring them into your house.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I want to thank Logan Street Signs and Banners for being our sponsor, and Hamilton County Television for allowing this event to happen. And we're going to take a short break, and we will be back shortly.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street Signs and Banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Oh.
Welcome back to Hook Connections. We were just jabbering away. While we were on break, we talked about some other things. Cindy, go ahead and give us a little background about the story you were just talking about with security companies, because that's another huge business that goes knocking door to door, and these new companies that come out just happened in my neighborhood not long ago. I can't even remember the name of the company, Vivint or something like that. But just they come knocking on your doors and they want to come in your house and,
Right.
Tell the story about what happened recently.
So there was a young lady who let someone in their home, and the person was, I don't know if it was a real security company or a fake security company or someone posing as a person who works for a real security company. But either way, they let someone in the house and they were walking around discussing the different points of entry and things that needed to be done. She stepped away and took a phone call and realized that she had left. And later, when she spoke to a friend, they went around the house and looked, and they realized that that person had unlocked a window. So whether or not that person was coming in to, do something to harm them later, at a minimum break into the house, it's something you want to make sure that you're, aware of, because that might have been a real security company, might have been a person who just said they were working for a security company, and so you don't know. That's why you want to make sure you're calling people and not just having people stop by. If you want something, you will look for it. It doesn't need to come to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And something else we discussed about, and I know for a fact that a lot of little towns and areas of Indianapolis or suburbs of Indianapolis have their own licensing requirements, like Beech Grove has theirs. If you're going to do any kind of business at all in Beech Grove, you've got to get licensed with them to do that. Talk to the people about some different instances that could occur. We just talked about one of them. I know one of them is a magazines, candy, and then donations. So talk about some of the things that could occur with people knocking on your door that say that they're licensed to do it,
Right.
but maybe not, or...
Remembering the first thing that we say is don't answer the door to begin with, and just say you're not interested in anything. So first do that one. If you feel compelled to answer the door, then you might ask them if they have their solicitor's permission to come there. Recently in Speedway, a group of people faked some letterhead and actually went to the Speedway mayor's office or wherever they have to get this soliciting permission, and they got it with fake information. So you still want to be careful. They weren't trying to steal, they weren't trying to hurt anyone. They were just trying to get money and use it obviously for not the purpose that they said it was going to be used for. So, we talk about all these awful things. I want to make sure that we do recognize that most people in the country are honest. You just have to watch out for the really bad ones. And so you just
Right.
want to be on guard for
Because
them.
one bad apple can make the awareness so much greater because of, it just the talk about it just multiplies.
Right, exactly.
And it just so happens that in Speedway they were collecting for donations for a school, and all these people thought that they were given to a school, and they weren't.
Then finally a lady said, well, you look like you should be school age. Why aren't you in school? Because it was a school day. And when they called them, the police showed up and found them and then stopped them from doing that.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. Something else that we talked about in emails that is real important is some of the online dating scams. So if you could just sit and talk about your the prosecutor's office feelings on all of this that occurs, and what you need to be aware of, and how to protect yourself.
Well, it's just like in when someone knocks on your door, they say they are one person, but they may not be. When someone calls you on the phone, they say they are one person, but they may not be. The same thing on the internet. When you go and join one of these online dating places or any place to meet people, Craigslist, name your whatever list it is, you really don't know who's on the other end of that computer. And particularly with the online dating scams, people will put in a picture of someone else, right? And then so they either look better or look different, whatever it is they want to be. They try to move quickly in these relationships, and then they have reasons for why they need this or reasons for why they need that. And so they are lying to you about who they are. So you just want to be very careful about that, because they're very hard to pick up on. Until after you've been in them for a while. And if you think about it, the reason why people go on online dating sites is generally because they're looking for companionship or some sort of relationship. Well, love or caring is a very hard thing to get out of. If you start with trusting someone, it's very hard to then break that trust.
I
and so
actually
you need to be very careful
did
with
get
that.
on a dating website once, and it ended up that this person, he just seemed so genuine and so honest and all this stuff, and the pictures they post, they could be pulling from the internet. You
And
don't
they
have
do.
any idea. And then it ended up that he had to go to another country for his child, and then wanted me to send money with my credit card, and
Right.
so that was the last I was on that dating site.
Right, and that's what happens. But it quickly happens. Hey, you're friends, or you're in a relationship. I care about you. Hey, help me out on this, and they always have a compelling story for why they need the money, and then it ends when you either run out of money or you're not willing to give it anymore, and then someone will get on the end and say they got sick or they can't. They're no
Or
longer
you
willing.
allow them to come to your house when you have never met them before, or meet somewhere that is not a bright lit public place, and then worry about them following you home and they get your license. I mean, it just can be very frightening, because these women or men,
Right,
depending
either.
on who they are, they could be murdered. All kinds of things could happen,
Yeah. Well, and the Craigslist site, there have been multiple crimes that have happened from Craigslist.
Cell
right?
phones, people
Right.
buying cell phones and they get shot.
There were two gentlemen that killed a man over an iPad. So you want to be very careful about that. And then the other side, recently they've had the apartment rentals. So someone will put a house up or an apartment for rent that isn't
it's a
actually for
foreclosed
rent,
house.
and then you send someone money, and that house doesn't exist, and then they've paid money for a house that they're not allowed to.
Yeah, and I
rent.
don't think it's been too long, but I remember seeing something that was put out by one of the media stations again on social media, that not only did one person pay a down payment for rent and the first month's rent, but 13 people showed
Right.
up to move into one house all on the same
day.
weekend.
Right, exactly. And that's why you need to research who it is, and you should never send money before you see what it is that you're getting and you met the person that you're
And I think
dealing
you
with.
should hire a realtor even when you go rent a house just for your protection, because they can make sure everything's
Okay.
legit. And but that's just the way I am.
That sounds like a good
We
plan.
need to take a short break again, and we will be back in just a few.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Welcome back to Hook Connections. Cindy, it is such a great pleasure to have you on the show.
Who are you?
I'm Barbara Hook with Hook Connect. We are your connection to the next honest service provider. We go research those people, those contractors and service providers, to find the honest ones. Sometimes it's a struggle for us to do that. But if you get quotes with 3 companies and you want me to do a quick check on those 3 companies, all you have to do is send me an email or a text and all that info, and you can contact me on the information that's on the screen. My email is barb@hookconnect.com, and my phone number is 317-473-3778. Let's talk about what you do with the prosecutor's office, and how the state of Indiana is so different than any other states in what you do.
Okay, so my job is that I'm the Adult Protective Services Prosecutor, which means I work with some investigators that handle endangered adults. So that is anyone over the age of 18 who, by some disability or either physical or mental disability, is unable to care for themselves in some way, and then we can step in and help them. We prosecute crimes that are perpetrated against those folks. Neglect or battery, physical abuse, or financial exploitation cases when those people are being victimized by either scammers who they don't know, or unfortunately a lot of cases it is affinity fraud. Family come in and end up.
It's called affinity fraud?
Affinity, so that's
Okay,
just the word,
right.
yeah, affinity fraud. So that means family or friends who are supposed to be taking care of the person, but in effect end up not taking care of them.
So what is the I mean, I know you can't go into any details, but what's the absolute worst case scenario that you've ever been involved in?
Well, unfortunately, that ends up with the death of someone.
Right.
Because
Does it happen frequently?
Not frequently, but with now that the population is aging, I fear that it will happen more frequently. And what we do at the prosecutor's office, the APS department, we have sort of a twofold. We are sort of social workers. Our investigators are social workers in that they help people connect with services and help them get them out of bad situations. And then we can prosecute the crime after. So obviously our first concern is always to get the person out of the situation. So whether it be a physical abuse case or they're being neglected, or if no one is there to take care of them, so they have no family and they are unable to care for themselves, we can step in and take them to a place. So obviously our first concern is always the social side to make sure that that person is safe, and then we worry about filing a charge or something about that secondarily.
Right. And so are there some people out there that just dwell on doing the abuse, not necessarily battery abuse, but financial abuse on just seniors?
We haven't had anyone that we've dealt with that my county personally that has just done that. I suspect that there are people who do that, and they would be people who could be in positions of trust. So, someone who might work for a company that, gets involved with different people and then could move in and change. They might get involved legitimately and then change and find an opportunity to scam that person.
So, for instance, a big company could get involved in their community a lot and do events for elderly or whatever the case may be. Wow.
Yeah, that could happen. Typically, it's usually just the one that you're connected with. If my parents grow up or get older, then I'm the one taking care of them. It's usually the family members or someone close. It's not. I don't have a lot of those cases where it's strangers. It happens sometimes, but not a lot yet. Although that could change as the society is getting older.
Absolutely. And that brings up another thing that we want to touch on too, is the security scams.
Right.
In Indianapolis, we've seen the FBI go and shut down a lot of different security firms. Actually, my sister works for one of the largest ones in the country. But explain to people how they can protect themselves before they go to make any of those financial investments and what they should ask and stuff like that.
Well, just like contractors or businesses, brokers all have to be licensed in the state of Indiana. So you can go on the Secretary of State's website, and they have a side on there where it says, check your broker. And you just click on it that quickly. You type in your broker's name, and then it will pop up and say whether or not they are a licensed broker in the state of Indiana. So if you meet a friend, or typically these things happen at churches or someplace where there are a lot of people together, and then become friendly with one person, get them in on the bottom, I've got this great deal, would you like to buy into this security? And then that person starts telling the other people. And recently there was a case of a gentleman who did this in a church. I use that term loosely, gentleman, right? Because what he was doing is basically a Ponzi scheme. You use that person's money to pay the person off so that everybody looks like they're earning money, but they're not. And so the people are thinking that they've bought into something that is legitimate, some sort of retirement thing or a security, a stock or something like that, which does not exist. So you check the broker online and making sure that they are actually licensed.
Now, can you check the broker firm online too?
You mean like Edward Jones something like that?
Well, if it's a John Smith brokerage house, or
then
they
John
have to be
Smith,
licensed
who
too,
works
don't
for
they?
them, has to be licensed, right? Like I pulled up my individual person and it said who he worked for.
Okay.
So it
it'll
should have
show on there
it should have some info.
who they have you
Correct.
registered with.
Exactly.
And if you're not registered with the company you say you're with, that's another
Right.
way just to get away from this, to prevent that scam from happening.
Right, and the Secretary of State's office is the office in this state that investigates those sorts of things. So if you think that you have fallen victim to some sort of security fraud, then you would contact the Secretary of State's office, and they do
And
investigations into that.
anyone, you can call and make a complaint. You can submit it electronically.
Correct.
You can print a complaint form and mail it in, or take it down there. So there's lots of ways that people can deal with reporting scams and reporting fraudulent things like this.
Right. And even if you're not sure that it's fraudulent and you can't figure it out online ahead of time, you can always call them and ask them, is this real? And then they would be able to tell you.
Right,
That's one of the things
The
I think
Secretary
is
of
the
State will work with you, and so will the Attorney General's office.
Right. Because and just like the prosecutor's office, one of the reasons why my office goes out and does presentations is to prevent the crime from happening in the first place. Because if we can prevent the crime, then it's better. If the crime happens, it's unlikely that we'll ever recover your money. So we may be able to charge them with a crime, but if they've stolen $100,000, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to recover all of that.
We just
from
need
you.
to figure out a way to stop the fights in the shampoo aisle at Walmart.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, it's just so funny.
Right.
And it really puts a damper. It really makes people think badly of areas just
Right.
because of some of the
Silly things that
scumballs
happen.
that come in. Anyway. Again, Barbara Hook with Hook Connect. This is Cindy Oetjen, a prosecuting attorney's office from Marion County. She's there to help those seniors. If you know anybody that is being abused, she's going to end up probably taking care of the case for you. So we will be back soon. I'm not sure the exact date. When we have a great speaker or guest, we will post it on social media. So again, thank you, Walford Theater and Logan Street Signs and Banners, for allowing us to have this show, and we will see you next time.